Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Minimum weight champion Yokasta Valle is set to defend her two alphabet titles on the undercard of Zepeda versus Gesta against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Don't think it's going to be Senicia Estrada. Obviously, that's the best fight to be made.
No, she just fought.
I'm still not optimistic. Nicaraguan-born, Costa Rican-based Valle will participate in a 10-round match as part of the Zepeda versus Gesta fight card. In the main event, William El Camarón Cepeda will defend his WBA Continental America's lightweight title in a 12-round match against Mercito No Mercy Gesta.
Yokasta Valle was in attendance for Senicia Estrada's last fight, her title defense against former champion Leonela Paula Judica.
Talked about Senicia Estrada struggling in that fight, why she might have struggled, and how Yokasta Valle, in so many words, told her she would like the showdown between them to happen in her neck of the woods, in her native Costa Rica, making the undisputed minimum weight title fight a long shot.
Senicia fills up theaters in America, but Yokasta fills up stadiums in Costa Rica, which is true.
It's not likely that the fight happens. I don't think it is, because Senicia is with Top Rank and Yokasta's still with Golden Boy, because Yokasta wants it in Costa Rica, whereas Senicia would want it in America.
Yokasta's next opponent has yet to be announced, and I'm still of the opinion that what Yokasta is doing is waiting Senicia out. Don't let Senicia's last performance fool you.
She might have looked a little bit more human with Leonela Paula Judica, but Leonela Paula Judica is a naturally taller, longer woman, a bigger woman than Yokasta Valle, with a very different way of fighting a fight than Yokasta, where Judica is defensively minded, Yokasta is offensively minded, and a fight between Senicia and Yokasta would have a very different aesthetic.
Different from what we just saw. What was working for Judica in that fight, those are ingredients that Yokasta doesn't possess.
In tandem with Senicia Estrada claiming post-fight that she had a hard weight cut, that for the first time in her career, she was dehydrated. It was hard making minimum weight that time.
First signs that Senicia may be outgrowing the weight. How much longer will she campaign at minimum weight? I feel like Yokasta is waiting her out.
She knows Senicia is not going to go back to Golden Boy.
No.
She knows she's not going to do the fight in Costa Rica.
No.
It's an environment where the fight would be quite difficult to negotiate. And if you're Yokasta Valle,
I'm just bouncing ideas around.
it's not exactly a requisite that Yokasta Valle fight Senicia. Senicia specifically, in order to further unify this division. Not if Yokasta is waiting her out, waiting for her to move back up to light flyweight, waiting for her to vacate the two alphabet titles she's got, at which point Yokasta would fight for them against someone else, some contender, perhaps Tina Ruprecht, the former WBC champion.
She beat Yokasta Valle some years ago. Some years later, there was supposed to be a rematch between them, but the COVID pandemic, the shutdown, all of that got in the way.
And the rematch never happened. Sometime later, Tina Ruprecht ends up opposite the ring Senicia Estrada instead of Yokasta Valle, and Senicia beat her in one-sided fashion. I happen to think that Yokasta Valle still wants her lick back with Tina Ruprecht.
It's a rematch that might happen, a rematch that might get rescheduled, because Yokasta, unlike Tina, she is with a major promotional outfit that has a major broadcast deal.
The difference between now and their initial meeting, the difference between now and what was supposed to be their second fight, Yokasta Valle, she wasn't with Golden Boy Promotions then. She was not yet fighting on DAZN, but now she is. And that might make all the difference to help bring that second fight into fruition. I would sooner expect Yokasta to end up fighting Tina again
Then fight Senicia once.
That's what I think. Now, I don't know if Tina will be Yokasta's next fight, but I could definitely see a Ruprecht fight materializing before an Estrada fight.
As stated, Yokasta Valle doesn't necessarily have to fight Senicia in order to further unify this division, because Senicia may be in the process of outgrowing it.
All Yokasta has to do is continue to drag this out, wait her out, and wait long enough that Senicia leaves the division and vacates the two titles she's got. That's my opinion.
What I think is going on.
Unfortunately, this is one of those fights that might get fouled under the one that got away, the one that never materialized. There are too many deal points and too many differences between what Yokasta wants and what Senicia wants that I don't think this fight will happen.
Not optimistic.
Men's welterweight news per tweet from Michael Benson turns Crawford on people calling for him to fight Jermell Boots Ennis. Fighting Boots is a lose-lose situation. If I win, they're gonna say he was young, he wasn't ready. This kid's never been tested before. I'm trying to go up and fight Jermell Charlo. That's history in the making. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and I deserve to do whatever the fuck I want to do. I don't care what nobody says, how anybody feels. Fuck them.
Is he right? Would he be deprived of credit if he were to beat Jermell Boots Ennis?
I think so. I think that many of the people now gravitating towards Jermell Boots Ennis, the ones that have and the ones that still are doing so from a deep-seated hate of Terrence Crawford. I mean, if they didn't like him before he beat Errol Spence Jr., they certainly don't like him now. And when you think about the Spence fight and how there are those out there depriving him credit for that.
Depriving him of credit for beating Errol in one-sided fashion, which isn't what they expected, what they predicted.
Because of some doctor that called into BDA Live claiming that he believes Errol Spence Jr. is brain damaged, even though in order to participate in these fights, these contests, you have to pass your medicals. You have to go through MRIs.
People claiming that Errol Spence Jr. was weight drained.
People like Abel Sanchez, veteran trainer Abel Sanchez, who actually picked Errol Spence Jr. to beat Terrence Crawford, only so that when he doesn't, he can start talking about weight.
Take a look.
Who wins that fight, Abel?
I think Spence does.
Wow, yeah. Spence?
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah,
why.
I'm saddened to see him get in an accident, but I think that he's got the talent and the size to beat Bud. I think Bud is not active enough. Neither one of them are active enough, but I think the other guy's got less miles on him and should beat Crawford. Won't stop him, but I think you'll control him from the outside. His jab will be significant, and whether Bud goes right or left-handed, I think Spence will deal with it easily.
So when I stop him, y'all gonna say he was too weak.
On my life,
and he stayed at 147.
You would not stop
too long.
me. You would not stop me.
Oh, he definitely wasn't right. You just look at him. Look at his eyes going into the fight, man. He looked like he was loaded. You know, that just fatigue. That just the body just don't want to be there. I mean, there's no way you can recuperate in those from the time they weighed in to now to the fight night. He's going to get a lot of food in him. He's going to get a lot of liquids in him, but he's still drained. He still killed himself to make weight. And to me, it was obvious. I didn't see the press conference, but somebody told me that at the press conference, he looked like a skeleton. I don't know if that's true, but is that true? Did you see the press conference?
Well, I was there at the post-fight press conference.
No, the prior press conference.
Oh, no. I was there too. I talked to him at the final press conference, and yeah, he looked like he was cutting. To be honest, he looked like a cut. Like I don't know if it was close to like when Devin Haney cut for his second Kambosos fight. He looked really sunken in, but he looked like he was going through a weight cut, a rough one.
And you see a different guy fight night. I mean, that's not the same guy you were talking to before on Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever that press conference was. So to me, that could have been one of the issues.
So when I stop him, y'all gonna say he was too weak.
On my life,
and he stayed at 147.
You would not stop
too long.
me. You would not stop me.
See what I mean? If they won't give Terrence credit for fighting a more experienced fighter than a Jermell Boots Ennis, a unified champion, an unbeaten one who was supposed to have been in his prime, a fighter that many of them picked to beat Terrence.
Right.
If they won't give him credit for that, what makes you think they'll give him credit for this? As soon as he beats Boots, and I would pick him to beat him.
Here and now, I would.
Said it before, and I'll say it again. You see what a bit of movement, some shifts, some pivots, some lateral movement did to Jermell Boots Ennis's stopping power. He was unable to stop the fleet of foot Karen Chukatsian that went in there only fighting half of a fight, and Jermell Boots Ennis not being used to a moving target.
Right.
He was unable to score the knockout. He didn't look like a wrecking machine with Karen Chukatsian. If Karen were more of a counterpuncher,
Right.
an ambidextrous switch hitter with power in both hands,
Right.
what would the outcome have been?
If Karen Chukatsian can work around your power enough that he can go the distance with you, what makes you think that Terrence Crawford can't?
He's got more tools than Karen Chukatsian, more battle-tested, at more weights over time than a Karen Chukatsian. No, Boots is just the next flavor of the month the Spence fans gravitated to because they were proven wrong.
They're just moving a goalpost, and I said they would.
Terrence has bigger fish to fry. Bigger fish at 154 pounds. He has his heart set on a Jermell Charlo fight. What still is that division's undisputed champion, even though he's set to venture 2 divisions north of junior middle at super middle for the Canelo fight in late next month.
But the feeling feeling seems to be mutual between Terrence and between Jermell. Where Terrence wants to fight Jermell, Jermell seems to want to oblige him.
Jermell Charlo says, bring on Terrence Crawford showdown beyond the upcoming Canelo fight. Charlo obviously has an upcoming showdown against Alvarez. Crawford, in the meanwhile, will likely have to prove that his first win against Spence was no fluke, as the former champion revealed that he'll enact his immediate rematch clause. He has yet to do that.
Right.
If Crawford makes it consecutive victories, Charlo acknowledges that he'll gladly step in and face the 35-year-old next. Mega fights from here on out. After my boys' rematch, we can give the people what they want and make the Terrence Crawford fight happen.
It's been 2 weeks since Terrence Crawford put that beating on Errol Spence Jr. He hasn't activated the rematch clause yet. I don't know if by the time this video is uploaded, that news will break, but the clock is ticking.
That fight was 2 weekends ago. We're very close to this weekend, which will make 3.
Ahead of the fight, the story was, whoever loses the fight, they've got approximately 30 days to activate that rematch clause.
And that rematch has to take place this year, before this year is out. Many advise Errol against activating that rematch clause, saying he should give himself time to recuperate and rebuild. He doesn't need to go in with Terrence straight away.
But you want to be mindful of that until Errol Spence Jr. makes a decision, which he still hasn't, it's not like Terrence is free to fight Jaron Ennis anyway.
If Errol decides that he doesn't want to activate the rematch clause, that he wants to ease himself back into activity against someone else, Terrence said it after the fight. He's moving up to 54. He's been saying he wants Jermell Charlo before the fight. He's singing the same tune after the fight.
Don't act brand new.
Knew that before the outcome of the Spence fight was decided. That Terrence Crawford wants Jermell Charlo, and he says he doesn't like Jermell because he is a fake individual, and he is definitely coming for him. Now, myself, I don't expect that beyond the Canelo fight, Jermell will return to junior middleweight, but Terrence,
Not gonna let that stop him.
I don't like Jermell for the simple fact that I feel he is a fake individual. Crawford said on the Porter Way podcast, I feel Errol is real. I feel he is genuine. I feel he stands on 10 toes on everything that he says or does. I feel Jermell is just, one of those guys that do that for a lot of attention.
I mean, we saw the courage of Errol Spence Jr.'s convictions in him just having this fight, because he said that he would. He said he would at least try to become an undisputed champion. He said he didn't want to fight Keith Thurman.
And for better or worse, he said he didn't believe in tune-up fights. We saw Errol's compunction.
We did.
When Terrence Crawford says that Errol is more genuine and Errol is more likely to stand on his word, I think the fight itself, just that fight happening after all these years, is a perfect example of that. Whereas Jermell,
He says he's open to fighting Terrence Crawford, but I think those are just empty promises. You go up to 168, you make a fuck ton of money with Canelo, so you can kill yourself to make 154 afterwards.
I was cool with Jermell and Jermall and their older brother prior to me moving up in weight, Crawford said. I got messages, he hit me up, and you know what I mean? Asking me, saying he's gonna pull up in Omaha, and we're talking about cars. We're talking about all different kinds of stuff. Now, I mean, once, I moved up in the division, and I understand that they're stablemates, and he trains with Errol's coach, and they've been knowing each other for a long time. For him to start bashing me and talking bad about me and saying I'm gonna get knocked out, just going out of his way to say little slick shit about me, I was just like, man, it's some hoe shit. We don't do shit like that. If you're cool with him and you're more cool with him, just say that and keep it pushing. You don't have to act no extra kind of way and doing all that extra shit.
For Terrence Crawford, there is more in it in terms of legacy, moving up to 154, trying to become a 4-division champion with or without Jermell, than there is staying at welterweight and taking on Jaron Boots Ennis,
He's a good young fighter. It's not that he isn't, but there actually is more in it for Terrence, moving up to 154 instead of staying at 147. And let's not pretend that most of the people endorsing Jaron Boots Ennis aren't just closet Spence fans, sore fucking losers. We all know that they are.
Terrence wants Jermell.
Same with Adrian Broner. Me and Broner aren't close, you know what I mean? But we have a mutual respect for each other, and Broner told me to my face, and I respect his opinion. He was like, hey man, I've got Errol. I fuck with you. You're my brother. But I've got a real bond with Errol, and I've been having a real bond with Errol. So I rather you be like that. Be up front and just watch it as a fan. But you go on and say, oh, Errol's gonna knock his ass out. He's gonna do this. He's gonna do that. We're Texas boys. Man, you're from Louisiana, bro. Come on. I'm just saying, he ain't from Texas to the heart. I don't like shit like that. Like, dude, I don't rock with that.
More in it in terms of legacy at 154 for Terrence Crawford and the promise of maybe getting Jermell Charlo, at least in Terrence Crawford's own mind. Naturally, he feels that by moving up there, he can bring himself closer to that fight. There is a personal element. It's not just legacy. He genuinely doesn't like that guy.
So I see the logic.
Just told him he's a bitch, Crawford said. I told him some more shit, but I ain't gonna say everything, you know? It was just a heated moment. I wanted to let him know how I felt and let him know that I'm definitely coming for him. Saw Terrence Crawford knock down Errol Spence Jr. in the fight, run to the neutral corner, and start shouting obscenities to Jermell Charlo, who he still had on his mind
While in the ring with Errol Spence.
there's some bad blood there.
The process of beating the crap out of one guy, he's already thinking about beating the crap out of another.
It's a common sense argument. It's basic logic that there really is more in it for Terrence Crawford at 154 instead of staying at 147. And some people, they're not going to like that, but those are the same people that picked Spence to beat him.
Is anybody really surprised that they are now gravitating towards Jaron Boots Ennis? I mean, the ones that aren't holding out hope, blind faith, that things will be different for Errol at 154. The ones that aren't doing that are putting all their hopes into Jaron Boots Ennis, the next souped-up Showtime fighter. They didn't learn their lesson.
I didn't expect them to. I said they were going to do this.
It's not because I think Boots is a bad fighter. I don't actually think Boots is a bad fighter. What I do think is that he is inexperienced, and what I do think is that those gravitating towards him now are doing so because they're bitter.
They were never going to give Terrence credit for beating Errol Spence Jr. That was the last thing they expected to happen, but now that it has,
I have no intention of giving them credit for it. If anything, it's make them hate him even more.
the Showtime brand took a hit because Terrence Crawford, in spite of being in bed with Showtime at this time, he's not actually a Showtime fighter. He was not developed, was not groomed by either Showtime or the PBC. To many people, he's still a top-ranked fighter, a top-ranked alum.
Better top rank developed. And another glaring example that while Al Heyman may be in the business of building brands and building attractions, Top Rank builds fighters. Fighters that more often than not beat his boys.